Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you, everybody?
Alaikum
It
salam.
is
Good evening, Karim. Hope you are good.
alaikum wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome, Dr. Harry. Here today, my esteemed guest is Dr. Charilaos, but we call him Dr. Harry. He preferred this name because a little bit the Greek language is a little bit difficult for us. What do you think, Doctor?
Hmm. Like Arabic is for me.
Yeah, like Arabic is for me. طبعا دكتور هاري is an economic doctor, finance doctor, a finance professor. He's working in Abu Dhabi University. You've been finance professor since when, Dr. Hari?
Well, in the last 4 years that I'm here in the UAE, but I've been in the Middle East for quite a long on various capacities. I'm quite familiar with what's happening around, especially socially.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well,
And also,
that's
I'm
a great.
coming from Greece, a country that has a culture that is closer than many other Western countries to the Arab world. So we share some common ways of doing things and perceiving things as well.
Yeah, I bet we do. Okay, today, guys, we're gonna talk about the dynamic changes in the macroeconomic level because of the military operation, the Russian military operation in Ukraine, and the sanctions on Russia, the supply and demand, and the inflation, and all. We will explain a lot of aspects on that changes. So I would like to start by the inflation in the United States. 2 days ago, I was reading a financial experts explaining that the inflation in the United States reached around 7.9, and like the general public of the United States is complaining about the prices, especially the energy prices, which is the gallon reached around $7 per gallon, which is the gasoline, and that's very high. Like you need around $150 to fill your car if you have a big car. $150 to fill it with gasoline. The general public is not happy about it, but what make me think is that United States does not import energy like petrol and gas from Russia. So why the energy prices increased that much in United States itself?
Well, thank you very much, Karim, for setting these questions. They are indeed very important questions these days, and they are part of worries of people all over the world. The
Yeah.
root cause of them is a bit more complex. Every
Mhm.
conflict that we may have in the economy in any part of the world these days because of globalization spreads over the rest of the world, and it creates uncertainty, and uncertainty
Mm.
is a very bad thing for economic activity. And we can see this impact of uncertainty in many different economic variables. Inflation is
Mm.
one of the most important one, and the one that really shows the impact more vividly and more quickly. The
Mm.
causes of this inflationary increase have to do essentially with the fact that the war in Ukraine has upset very much the international global value chains, as a result of
Mhm.
which supply and demand of quantities of tradable products and services has been disrupted again. We had the first
Mm.
level of disruption coming with the coronavirus. Now we have another one that follows the first and brings the problem, makes the problem even more acute. Of course, one can say that these disruption in the supply chain, it's focused on certain goods, not everything. Nevertheless, these are very important ones, and we can we can expect to see that they will matter a lot in terms of increasing the costs of prices, and these the cost of production, and these cost is being transferred to the final prices. But that's not the
mm,
only reason. We have some
mm.
additional developments because of the war. We have a huge number of refugees, which really we haven't seen so massively happening in previous crisis periods. And these refugees essentially are pushing the system also.
Yeah.
In terms of real estate, of housing, of support, and that contributes to inflation as well. And then we
Mhm.
have what you said, the energy prices. Energy prices,
Yeah.
oil, gas, and coal, because they have complementarities between themselves, keep rising very rapidly. And we all know that the energy prices are very important components of cost of production. And that
Mm.
again, all of these together have as a result inflationary pressure to be very, very high and very, very sudden.
Yeah. So it is on the American, as American population, it is indirect impact because of the global macroeconomic dynamic changes. It is not like Europe, because the European themselves, like they depend in a way or another, like up to 50%, 40 to 50%. Some of the European countries depend on the Russian gas and on the Russian petrol in general, and like they export wheat, they export grains from Russia. So the direct impact will be on the European themselves, and indirect impact to the rest of the world. That's what I understood, right?
Well, to a large extent, you are right with respect to the difference of impact of the war between Europe, the United States, and the rest of the world. But
Yeah.
the difficulty in Europe essentially will come mainly from energy prices, not so much
Yeah.
from the prices of commodities such as wheat, for example, because this is what Europe mostly imports from Ukraine and the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
And the Soviet Union and Russia. Regarding the
Yeah, the Russian
commodity
Federation.
prices, I think the Middle East will also bear a considerable cost, and especially countries like Turkey, Egypt, and Israel and Tunisia, and that they are importing a lot of wheat from Russia and Ukraine. Egypt, in
Yeah,
particular, and
especially Egypt.
Turkey.
90% of their
Yes,
wheat will come from Russia and Ukraine. So that's a huge impact.
that is correct. That is correct. So, with respect to commodity prices, I think the impact will be felt worldwide. But with respect to energy prices, the impact in Europe is going to be very high. But not only in Europe, really, because many other countries in the world also will be suffering in this respect.
Yeah, yeah,
Because the effect is influencing Latin America. They are importers of commodities. China, Japan, they are importers of wheat and oil, and all the world will be suffering. Some
hmm,
countries more, some countries less, some countries because of energy costs, some of consumption commodity costs. So the effect is going to be quite considerable, as well as the US will be suffering. Well, I wouldn't say indirectly, but considerably, because of the disruption in the supply chain. They need to
hmm.
import a lot of material for their manufacturing, a lot of precious metals like nickel that they need for chip manufacturing, which the price is getting whose prices have increased very much. So they will also bear the brunt of the crisis, of the consequences of this war.
Yeah.
But mainly
Here,
the
Amr,
poorer countries, the emerging markets will be the one that they will suffer more from commodities, whereas the advanced markets from energy costs.
yeah, Amr here sent super chats. Salutation for you, Coach Karim and Dr. Charilaos. Thank you, Amr. Thank you for your contribution. Okay, do we have to take under consideration that that Russia itself did not decrease the export of the gas or or the petrol until now? They did not decrease it. It's still running.
Yes, it is still running, and this would be an extreme reaction on behalf of Russia, which will also affect itself very much. Since the foreign reserves of the Central Bank of Russia, they are about 650 billion dollars, have been frozen to a large extent. Because of the sanctions, and Russia needs hard currency as well. And if it went as far as to interrupt the production and distribution of gas and oil, that will polarize the situation much more. And I think it is a rather good sign that so far the flow of gas and oil has not been interrupted. However, it is a risk if the war escalates further, and that will induce more active involvement of Western countries and NATO, perhaps, then we might also consider this possibility. But that would be, I
Yeah,
believe, an extreme measure that will affect everybody, both parties.
yeah, of course. But like the like um like I'm worrying about they are still doing having sanctions on Russia more harsh and more harsh every day. So they are provoking the Russian government to a certain degree. Like I assume if they keep provoking them, they will like they have that card to decrease the oil and gas production, and that will cause like the dollar the petrol barrel today is 119 $119. So if they decided to decrease it by 10 or 20%, like that will give the prices like a good impact, don't you think?
Yes, that is true. However, I would phrase it differently. It's not a matter of provocation of Russia. It's a matter of reaction here, much more based on the development in the war, and these developments, as we see every day, are not good. They have
Hmm.
now somehow been escalating, and this doesn't really, we don't really know where it's going to lead to, both the Western powers reaction as well as Russia's reaction. So it's a two-edged knife here.
Hmm.
We need to take into consideration. If you see the papers every day, now they are talking about risks that they do not, that a few years ago would be unthinkable, such as the
Yeah.
possibility of just hitting the nuclear buttons. So it is
Hmm.
not really impossible to expect that Russia may cut off supplies, and the West may respond even with more sanctions. The fact of the matter remains that there will be pain, economic pain and social pain in all parts. But I think Russia is the one that will have the biggest part, and substantial one, economic and reputational as well.
Yeah.
And
Well,
indeed, as you said, the price of oil has gone up very much, but that is not
hmm.
only because of Russia, it is also because OPEC now somehow is colluding, and they are very happy to see the oil price going that high. But I don't know
Yeah.
if that is a very good long-term strategy. It provides good short-term profits, but in the long term, that will induce as much as possible Western countries to get less and less reliant on oil and gas to the extent possible. And I think that would be a tremendous, we will see the next few years, a tremendous volume of investment on behalf of Europe mainly into renewable energy, getting outside um, oil and gas. Some people believe that in 10 years from now, especially in Europe, will be very, very minimally relying on imports of energy from Russia and from other countries. The problem will be much more important in China, that still will need huge quantities of oil and gas to run its economy there.
Yeah, yeah. Okay,
So
and
this is
on
shifting
other
the
hand,
geopolitical sphere quite a lot, as we shall see the coming few years.
yeah, I was like I was reading a few days ago what economic what steps that the Russian Federation took in the last 15 years since 2014, because this military operation have been planned very well, like since long time. It is not like 1 week decision. So since 2014, the Russian Federation was raising their reserve of precious metals, the actual precious metals, and it's been until 2021 up to around like near 700 billion gold in the Russian central bank. So, like, do you think that can support the economy and to prevent it from falling down or collapsing?
Well, I do not know. I do not have any information. I haven't really looked up on it regarding accumulation of gold reserves. But I know very well about the accumulation of foreign exchange reserves, mainly US dollars. But while you are correct, Russia has been accumulating a lot of those, learning on the previous sanctions in 2014 that were imposed by the West because of the Crimea war. It did accumulate them to a large extent by depositing them in foreign banks, not within the central bank of and the Russian financial system. As a result of which, now these reserves are not accessible. Only a small portion of it is accessible, and that deprives Russia from really using these reserves to withstand the war and the sanctions for a long period of time. Now, if you say that they have also large amounts of gold, which I believe they do, but I don't know
Yeah.
how much, that will of course help them. Help the country to meet foreign obligations in foreign currency. I mean, but this doesn't mean that there will not be hardship to common people, to simple people in Russia, because a lot of these reserves will be used to pay off debt. Even though Russia doesn't have a lot of foreign debt, this runs to its advantage, we can say.
It's around 500
Nevertheless,
billion.
yes, nevertheless, it needs to import technology, high tech. It needs to import a lot of commodities. It can export wheat, but it needs to import vegetables, and it needs to import fruits, which it does not produce very much. It needs to import
Yeah.
cars. It needs to import capital goods, which it does not produce, both consumer goods and capital goods. And there will be strain. Of course, with respect to consumption goods, I think the needs can be met to some extent by opening up to Asian markets. But
Yeah.
with respect to capital goods and
India and China.
especially high tech, I think it will have a serious problem. In fact,
India and
I do
China.
know. In
Yeah,
fact,
I'm
I was
saying
saying I do
India
know.
and China, like the trading with India and China did not stop, and they announced that it will never stop. The Chinese government and the Indian government, they announced that it will never stop exchange with Russia.
Yes, but on the other hand, as you can understand, many of these goods are being denominated in US dollars and yen or euros. And since Russia has been out of the international payment system, because many
Swift.
of the important banks have been taken out of the SWIFT, then it will have a problem in completing these transactions. It can be done in local currencies, but that requires that many exporters to Russia would like to get the ruble. Do they? It depends. I don't know. I'm not so sure that they would like,
Well,
at least
they
as
do
we.
agree. They do agree last week to do foreign exchange and trading with India and China using yuan, the Chinese yuan. They agree, the three countries, that they will use the Chinese yuan, and that will affect the dollar domination to small extent, to certain extent.
That is true. However, you need to take into consideration that Russia has tried to do the same thing in two, 2014 after the Crimea War. That is to establish an alternative currency on the basis of which international transactions will take place. However, it did not
Hmm.
work. It did not really work very much. Now you say this, I am not aware of that, but even though I would expect that China would engage into that, it has a certain interest in that, but I'm not sure about India, because India, let's not forget, is part of an alliance with Australia and the US that really eyes China. So I don't know to what extent India would go as far as to jeopardize the very important for itself relationship with the United States in this respect. So I'm not so sure. Maybe the one can be used as a denomination currency for certain commodities, but I don't think it will be generalized. On the other hand, you're right. All these developments will affect the value of the US dollar and the Pax Americana, the hegemony of the United States. But that's not because of the Russian war, really. It has started the last few decades, slowly, slowly. We see now with the rise of China and a few other countries, we're moving into a bipolar geopolitical system, not even multipolar, I would say, geopolitical system, where we do see that the value of the dollar slowly, slowly is losing some of the value because the United States is withdrawing from becoming the world policeman. But on the other hand, we don't see too much of a rise
The world,
of
yeah.
the Chinese one. We see transactions taking place in euro or in Japanese yen, but not so much in with respect to the Chinese one. Let's see. Let's see how things go. I think we will see some relative increase of the value of these currencies, and it will be interesting how we will do transactions, imports and exports in a few years from now. Let's see.
Well, yeah. Like basically, the dollar had his value as uh, like as a main dominating currency or fiat currency in the world since 73 in Nixon era. While when he had that agreement with the largest oil producers country to not accept any other currency except dollar. So the demand on dollar was high since the 70s, because all the oil producers company, and that's important for you guys to understand it, why the dollar is the main currency of the world. That's why, because all oil producers country will never accept or will not accept any other currency other than dollar when you want to buy oil. And like there is two-person in the history try to break that agreement, which is Saddam Hussein, and he's dead, and Muammar Gaddafi, and he's dead. So that's a big red line. That's a big red line that you can't cross. But now,
Well,
like the United States is pushing a large countries such as Russia to choose other currency to do foreign exchange and to produce oil and other goods and taking another currency because they are cutting Russia out of the global financial system. They are not allowed to use dollar anymore. Almost they are not allowed to use or it's very hard for them to use dollar. So they will find the other way. That's the common sense decision that they're gonna take. So they've been like since 20 days having conversations with China on using yuan, like when they want to export or import from China, and like lately. India engaged in that conversation. So they are almost had that decision, or like they're still cooking it to use the yuan instead of dollar for trading exchange with Russia. So who did that? Who did that? The United States foreign policies, or the way how they treat the other country as the policeman of the world, that will create fear in other government, especially large countries such as Russia and China. So they will find alternatives when they cut them out of the SWIFT. They have two other systems other than SWIFT. They have Chinese one, and they have the Russian one. It is alternative, so they can do it with China and other Eastern countries, Asian countries, with totally other system. So that's what happened with Iran. Like they are having sanctions since more than 20 years. That makes Iran more independent than they used to be before, because they will find other ways. Like anyway, you can hurt them for 1 year, 2 year, but if it was for years, they will find other ways to this.
of the Western world and the United States, they were in the defensive. That was a reaction to the Russians' invasion of Ukraine. Otherwise, it wouldn't have happened. Regarding the potential for establishing alternative means of payment, I think this is not going to be easy, because that would require banks to participate in those transactions, such as some alternative SWIFT. And so far, based on my readings, banks are not very much willing to do this, especially the Western big banks, that they really control most of the international global transactions, including those in Hong Kong and Japan, and some of them in China. So I don't know the extent, whether it is very likely that an alternative means of payment will be established as a result of this war. I think there will be efforts. You are right here. And I also don't think that the dollar, despite any problems that is suffering now because of the rise of this multipolar geopolitical system, will really lose value considerably in the coming few years, for an additional reason. That China, for example, which you see that you think that maybe the best alternative, is holding 1.2, 1.3 trillion of US debt. And because of
Yeah,
that, it
the
would not
federal
like to
bonds.
see the dollar going down, really, because that would mean suffering a loss on its investment value overall. And we see small gradual changes taking place, which this work may speed up. But on the other hand, who knows? Maybe we shall see a consolidation of the euro, maybe a new alliance coming between the United States and euro that will counter act the Russian and Chinese one, and things are in the flux. I'm not sure, again, I'm saying if I would include India into that. I'm not so sure about that, because I don't think India would jeopardize its relationship with the US so much. maybe it has, of course, vital interest with Russia, but it's fiercely opposed to China, and the three of them finding a common ground, I find it a little bit, difficult to expect anytime soon. Uh, but
Yeah,
it is true. We
regarding
will
the
see
system.
things going up and things going down. We shall see that.
Yeah, regarding the systems like the alternative of Swift, like they are already using them since years, but they used to use them in a local sense, in a
Yeah.
local sense. Now they are improving them to use it between two countries, between China and Russia. So and like in other hand, a lot of Russian oligarchs start buying cryptocurrency, like especially in Dubai. Like I wrote that. I was reading report about that. A lot of Russian rich people, let's say, was running to the crypto trading companies, turning their assets from the Western banks to and they're buying crypto like crazy. Like one of the company owners says, like I got 7 deals by billions from Russian oligarchs. So because like the Western financial system, or United Kingdom or United States, they cannot freeze the cryptocurrency assets. So they saw that coming and they start to turn their assets into digital assets. What do you think
That is
about that?
correct. I've read also about these trends, and they are logical. One would expect this to happen. Of course, one also should consider that one day that probably, hopefully, we will come back to normality. Then they will have to turn these cryptocurrencies again in more standard conventional currencies, and at what cost? Will they have suffered any capital loss in the meantime? And how about the money laundering issues? They have to justify where they got them from. And I don't think that it is such an easy road to take. It's just a necessity road to take. And
Yeah.
it will be very interesting to see. Okay, let's suppose now that you convert 1 billion, 500 million dollars or euros into cryptocurrencies. That will make the price of cryptocurrencies going up a lot. Okay, and then
No,
after a
no, no,
while,
not really. No, not really, doctor, because the cap market is 2 trillion. So the 500 million will not give like that huge impact on the international
no, I
cryptocurrency market.
agree, not a huge impact. Anyways, and what is going to happen once we have normal conditions coming up? Bitcoin is going to go down like this, as we all know that is happening. That means that they will suffer a big capital loss. And then, whatever the laws, they will liquidate their positions and convert them, the cryptocurrencies, back into dollars and euros. Then what? I mean, they have to justify where they found them. And maybe they can return them back to Russia. Who knows? That would be interesting to see.
Hmm.
But
Yeah,
today, the monitoring of digital transactions are so detailed that it's a bit hard to hide all these big transactions. And now, as you read, there are two committees in Europe and in the United States set up specifically to inquire about hidden assets of all oligarchs. And I think that will extend to many other ones. So we're going to see a lot of new revelations regarding money laundering issues the coming year or 2 years. Because now
yeah.
a lot of resources are being directed into that. And I think
Well,
not only the Russian oligarchs, but many other people are having their hearts beating.
yeah, yeah. But to be honest, I don't think that the cryptocurrencies will crash that way, like even if the war ended, because like there is a fluctuation since 10, 12 year in it. And for example, yesterday there was the United the governors of Florida state, they take decision to accept Bitcoin as for tax payment, as a government, like officially accept Bitcoin to take payment from people. Like many huge manufacturers and organizations is accepting Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies as official way of paying, and more countries is accepting it. So I do not really think that it will crash, that like it will have that huge collapse in the near future, because the demand is
Honestly,
going
I
up
don't
and
know.
up.
I don't know honestly, but if you look at the volatility of cryptocurrencies, it has been huge. And it is very, very closely linked to the general state of uncertainty. I was just reading some articles a few days ago that they link the values of cryptocurrencies to economic policy uncertainty index, and they found very strong correlations. But anyways, indeed, we cannot say how much, but certainly they will be considerable. Coming back to what you
Mm,
said regarding the acceptance of cryptocurrencies by public authorities or private sector entities, yes, that is happening and that is fine. But one needs to go one step further. What happens if this company that has gotten the cryptocurrencies wants to get a loan? Will the bank accept them as a collateral? On what basis? Will they will be able to use them to boost profitability? The accounting of these cryptocurrency capital gains and loss, how are they being recorded? They have to deal with all these issues, because it seems to me that a lot of these companies are dealing with cryptocurrencies because they have no other option. They are exporting goods and importing goods from countries where maybe getting paid in dollars or hard currencies is difficult, so they are accepting cryptocurrencies. This brings me back to what I said in the beginning, that the disruption of the supply chain, that the war and before the war, the coronavirus has brought about, it has been so big that leads, that pushes many of these companies to seek alternative means of payment.
yeah, yeah, I do totally agree. I do totally agree. Yes, but even there is a lot of governments now accept the cryptocurrency as a way of payment, like an official way of payment. And regarding if they want to use their digital assets, they can cash it out like within 30 minutes. Like, so they can use it. It's very easy to cash out the cryptocurrency. Very, very, very easy.
Yes, for liquidity purposes, let's not forget that money plays has several roles: is means of payment, unit of account, store of value. So it can be used for different reasons, and essentially as a unit of account and transactions, current basis is one of the most important one. But whether this is going to be generalized, it remains to be seen. There are also some efforts by some central banks to issue cryptocurrencies, some of them here in the Middle East. See, for example,
Yeah,
Saudi Arabia, and even, I mean, your country has expressed some interest. But the IMF has so far, I recently saw some data highlighted that this has not been happening very much and very fast, and the risks still are considerable. And unless there will be sufficient regulation and control of cryptocurrencies, I don't see that the trend is going to be very strong, very buoyant here. I think, yes, countries, governments, and financial institutions are flirting with them, but the extent to which they will embrace them remains to be seen. I'm also looking at them myself, try to understand what is happening here. But there is the
Yeah,
big problem is the lack of regulation.
yeah.
You
There
cannot
is
really
cryptocurrency
say what
mutual fund.
cryptocurrency is. Is it money
Yeah,
or is it something else? There
yeah.
is not a
There is
legal
now.
basis.
Yeah, I know. That's why people like it, because if the government can control it, I do not like it. If the government can control it, because the government control the regular financial system. So if they can control the blockchain cryptocurrency like network, uh, I will lose interest in it because it is alternative of the financial system. Decentralized means nobody can control my assets at all. Nobody. So in case the government didn't like me anymore, they can't they can't freeze my assets. Like they can't do anything. They can't, for example, in a crash, if the economy of the country, such as in Lebanon, like they prevent people, like we was talking about that before the live. They prevent people of withdrawing money more than $100 in day. That means like if you have $500,000, like you need to take them 100 by 100 every day to go to bank to take 100 and go back home. So does that harm me as a capital owner? Yeah, that does harm me. And like when I need my money, I need my money right now. So if there
Well,
is alternative system that can provide me this accessibility, this high accessibility to my assets, and nobody can harm me or prevent me from cashing out my assets, that will be an alternative system instead of the regular financial system, which is controlled by the government and like the rest of it.
well,
That's the
there are
selling
two
point. That's the pitch.
there are two issues here. The first issue
Hmm.
has to do with the very substance of cryptocurrencies. You said
Hmm.
correctly, yes, that people do not like the control of their assets by the governments. Well, I don't think
Hmm.
really that money and financial assets are subject to so much direct government control. But, anyways, but with respect to cryptocurrency, that means that as much as people do not like to have control of their assets, means that they have abolished control of their liabilities. So they have no control of anybody else, that is the blockchain that essentially assumes the liability of maintaining the value of the Bitcoin or any other cryptocurrency. So if something goes wrong, they have nowhere to turn because there is no legal basis for the blockchain. You cannot really file a lawsuit against the blockchain. So this is a big problem here, which people need to understand. All financial assets have an asset side and a liability side. They are
Yeah.
not like real assets like phones, like cars, like houses. So when the asset side goes up, logic says that the liability side goes up as well. So when the liability side cannot be met and the blockchain does not respond to the liabilities, does not honor the liabilities, then the asset side will collapse very quickly. So this is one thing that people need to understand before they place too much hope and expectations on cryptocurrencies. The second issue is different about withdrawing $100. This is about capital controls. This has nothing to
I
do
know.
with cryptocurrency first. And secondly, capital controls are what the government imposes, the central bank, just to protect the people because otherwise the banks would collapse. Now, the people here also have some responsibility. They need to know where they're depositing their money. But I certainly believe that here the problem is with the government itself. Take poor Lebanon next to you. I mean, they have created an impossible situation there. And I have friends also, Lebanese people and other people that I know, that they cannot withdraw their money. But what can happen? The
Yeah.
country is bankrupt. Uh, if the
Hmm.
banks open, there is no money there. because in the
Mm.
standard financial system, when you deposit 100, the bank takes the 70, loans them into a loan. So you have a short-term deposit that is matched by a long-term loan. The bank cannot retrieve the loan back to give the deposit money to the depositors
Yeah,
when
yeah,
they look. It is the very function of the banking system. So here, one needs to be careful not to allow the country to slip in this situation, because if you do allow it, then you have no option but to impose capital controls until the
yeah,
situation again comes to normal. Remember
yeah.
that in finance, it is everything based on expectations, on
Mm.
confidence, on trust. If for whatever reason, economic, non-economic, political, war, disaster, whatever, this confidence and trust breaks down, then you have a problem, because the asset side and the liability side fall apart. They do not coincide.
Yeah,
So the entire financial system is falling apart, including the currencies, including the transactions and everything. And
yeah. I do.
there, all the pathogenies of the country's production system and financial system are revealed.
Yeah, well, for me, I do know like how they create money. Like that's my profession since the university and all of my career. You know, I've been working in like one of the biggest financial institution in the Middle East. But like you're totally right. You're totally right. But for me as individual, like I do not really like give a French toast for what the government want to decide. Like I do not really care about the economy. I do not really care about if the bank collapse, if the government bank get bankrupt. I do not really care about if the system really crashed. Like I the first my first concern is my assets. I need accessibility to my assets. And here I'm not saying the cryptocurrency is the ultimate solution. I do understand that, and I know the risks. Well, the risks is not that high because you need the whole blockchain network to collapse, and the people who's using the whole 2 trillion market cap to to do stupid things with each other to for the whole system to be collapsed. But like in other words, I know it is not the ultimate solution yet as a cryptocurrency, but it can be one variable or one part of the solution. Like you can hold, because everybody now is talking about the apocalypse of the international financial system, and people are worried. And like I do agree that you have to be a little bit worried, and you have to understand macroeconomic little bit, like to certain degree, for you to have a better decisions, financial decisions, especially who's dealing with multi businesses in multi countries. So uh, precious metals is a good way. The mutual fund and index fund is a good way. The cryptocurrency is a good way. The real estate is a good way. But the fiat currency itself with the inflation and the expectation of the inflation is not the best way to hold your assets. Don't you agree with me?
Well, as things stand today, indeed, and given that the rate of interest on most currencies is near zero, even though we see tendencies to increases, you're right. I mean, if you hold cash or near cash assets, then you get no return. But you have, of
Yeah.
course, the advantage of 100% liquidity. You can have gold. The gold can
Mhm.
see a very high increase in prices. But how about transaction? If you have a bar of gold, what are you going to do this? Are you going to cut a little bit of that and selling in order to meet your salary? That's why, I mean, if you read now, yes, if you read now, people who are dealing with God, they say, even though you can make much higher capital gain by buying bars of gold, these are
Hmm.
very difficult to liquidate afterwards. So that's why people are turning into small gold coins, even though they are
Coins, yeah.
not going to make a very high return, because it's much more easy to liquidate and meet transaction needs and other needs. You have to take all these into consideration. Then,
Well, you can
coming
have
back
both.
to,
You can have
well,
both.
yeah, I mean,
Like
if you have a
if
lot
you're
of
buying,
savings, sure,
yeah, well,
sure.
like if you, for example, if you have 100,000, like you can put 20,000 in cryptocurrency, 50,000 in as a real estate, and 30,000 you can take bars and little coins. Like you can have both.
Well,
When
yeah,
you
yeah,
diversify your, like your
exactly.
risks, like you can be more, you can feel more safe with your
That's
assets.
correct. That's correct.
Yeah.
Portfolio diversification always has to take place in this aspect, and carefully looking the advice, taking the advice of experts in this aspect. You are right. You are right. That I would agree with you, and that's what people should do rather than focusing on one asset alone, such as cryptocurrency alone or gold alone, because there are issues. Just one point here, a quick one. Remember that you don't need to have the entire trillion of people that are trading on cryptocurrencies go panic. You just need a few of them. And because in financial markets, panic is contagious. We have
Yeah,
herd
mass
behavior.
hysteria.
Yes, herd behavior. So
Hmm.
something can happen. A few people can go panic, and then the entire market can go panic. What is happening in normal stock markets is also happening in the cryptocurrency market as well. Research proves that. So people need to be
Yeah,
careful in whatever asset they are choosing to invest their savings.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, Nawaf here says شكرا لك وللضيف. He's thanking me and you for this conversation. Thank you, thank you, Nawaf. Okay, on last point regarding Europe, Doctor. Like as you know, almost 1 hour ago, I was reading a piece of news about the inflation in United Kingdom, and it reached around 6.2, and that's the highest record in the last 30 years. Even in 2008, they did not reach that amount of inflation. So it is the highest inflation record in the last 30 years. Like, do you have any incitation regarding that? Because United Kingdom does not also depend on the Russian gas and oil, maybe 5% or 3%. Like, it is not really big portion.
Yes, it is true. You know, many people think that inflation is a monetary phenomenon. You even said it in the beginning that is, it
Hmm,
depends on the quantity of money. But that's not really the case. Inflation
hmm,
is either cost push or demand pull. Then I'm just
hmm,
drawing on Keynesian ideas. So we don't have a demand pull cause these days because demand is depressed, but we have a very serious cost push movement
hmm,
because
hmm,
costs of production have been increasing very much, essentially because of the disruption of the international trade, of the supply chain system globally, imports and
hmm,
exports. And people cannot really find, companies cannot really find the raw materials they need on time and the prices they need. This is
hmm,
one reason. The second reason is energy. Even though the UK doesn't import Russian oil, it has to, the British manufacturer has to pay
hmm.
for $115 per barrel oil to use
Yeah,
it for the production of goods and services. That's the price. Even here in the
yeah,
UAE, that they are producing, a lot of oil, the
hmm,
ADNOC has increased the cost of prices very much. People cannot believe it. And they say, well,
yeah,
it's a different story. It's a private company, $115 per barrel, they have to increase the prices. But here in the UAE, it's an oil producing country. Here, yes, as well. The same is happening
Is
in
it
the UK
like
and all over
is
the
it
world.
around 5 dirham? Is it around 5 dirham per liter right now?
A little bit less, I think, but it has
Four
increased
point
very
something.
much. People told me.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
didn't pay
yeah.
the attention, but
It was 3 dirham. Like when I was in Abu Dhabi,
a little,
it was
yeah,
around three dirham. Yeah,
yes.
now around 20%, I guess, increased. Yeah,
You
and
see
that's
around that
measurable.
the big SUVs are not running anymore as much as in the past. A lot of people here are buying small Corollas, Toyota Corollas, and they are moving with those. Yes, it is true.
Yeah,
So inflation is
yeah,
going to be endemic, not only Europe, all over the world. And
yeah, yeah,
depending on
yeah.
the
I do totally
import-export
agree.
structure of countries, some countries will have higher pressures than others.
Yeah, and the OPEC oil production countries are refusing to increase the production. By the way, and that's what drives the United States crazy in the last 2 weeks.
Well, you understand, the reason is simple. To
Hmm,
increase your production, that means you have to find demand for your products. I've
hmm,
been reading a report about car manufacturers. They have
hmm.
stocked up so many cars, they don't know what to do with them. They put them huge
Ah,
inventories of cars
hmm,
because they are not being sold to the extent that they were expecting to. And now
hmm,
that, for car manufacturing, you need certain metals which are coming from Russia. One would
hmm,
expect that the car prices, the cost of production is going to go up and sales prices is going to go up. If they don't increase the prices, they will squeeze the profit margin, which means
hmm.
that all these car manufacturing will see their profitability going down and their stock market price going down as well. It will be
Yeah,
interesting to
yeah.
see what is going to happen this year.
Basically, the supply chain, the global supply chain, drive that major impact on all countries, like in a way or another, and to certain degree, like to different degrees. That's the main issue, because the whole world is connected, really is as a network.
It depends on the network of connections, financial
Mm,
and production, imports and exports, the level and the composition, what you import, what you export. And that will make the differentiation in terms of impact. But all countries,
mm.
because they are interconnected, will have an impact.
Yeah, yeah. So overall, in the last few minutes of the podcast, overall, do you have any incitation for the next six months to 1 year regarding the inflation in general? Like if things going worse with with the Russian Ukrainian situation, like where do you expect like the inflation rate and for the major currencies in the world, like how's the impact, like can you give us any expectation if things go a little bit more worse and the sanctions keep going up and up and up, like what do you think, what will happen?
Well, I think that, and that is exactly what many people and organizations are doing. They need to establish different scenario for the near future.
Hmm.
A good, a bad, and an ugly, just to rephrase a well known movie.
Hmm.
It all
Hmm.
depends on the developments around the Ukrainian war. Uh,
Hmm.
if things if things go bad, then we would expect to see huge problems in the supply of gas and oil, disruption, and that will really push the global system into a big shock. On the
Hmm.
other hand, if the oil and gas keep flowing, markets eventually will settle. And if the
Hmm.
intermediate scenario would mean that the energy supply is disrupted. However, oil and gas prices do go up, but not to an extent that will dismantle the entire system. So people need to set up these scenarios and see, make simulations and see what impact these scenarios will have in their own financial and economic activity. Companies and individuals who are thinking about investment. Certainly, there will be consequences, but based on which scenario will eventually materialize, these consequences will be mild, will be intermediary, or will be severe. That's the only way to rationalize what is going to happen. And then we need to see, if we make those three scenarios, what is the impact of scenario 1, 2, and 3 on sanctions? What is the impact on the Russian economy, on the European economy, and the US economy, and the rest of the world? And then we need to develop some models there and try to forecast what is going to happen. The IMF is doing this as we speak of. The World Bank is doing this. The ECB is doing this. So let's see. Let's see. But certainly we cannot say something for sure. It all depends on the development in war and the scenario that will materialize. Everything is up in the air. We are talking about things with some probabilities. We don't know for sure. We don't know what Russia is going to do regarding the war. We don't know what Russia is going to do regarding the supply of gas and oil. We don't know what Europe and the US are going to do regarding sanctions.
Mm. There is there is a financial expert who used to write articles in Business Insider. He got that expectation of the inflation in the United States will reach 20% before the end of the year.
Really? Well, I don't
Yeah.
think that, because the Federal Reserve is going to step in, already has indicated its intentions, and it will increase the interest rate to control inflation. And I think they will do it. But inflation is
Mm.
only one of the bad things, and not necessarily the worst. We may see another round of collapses of companies, another round of bankruptcies. We shall see a lot of poverty, not only in Ukraine, but in Russia, perhaps, and many other countries, in sub Saharan Africa, maybe in Egypt, maybe because of the rise of energy prices and commodity prices in Asia very much. And we shall see a lot of inequality again. And these are bells that the World Bank is ringing all the time. That's what I'm more
Mm.
concerned with. The Western countries, sooner or later, they will keep inflation under control. They will suffer a little bit, but they will do it. But the rest of the world, we don't know. And I see it also in my country. People are suffering economically. They had coronavirus, now they have this. Tourism is, again, hit very severely. And
Yeah.
recently, I was approached by a consulting company that they asked now the World Bank to fund a project regarding the impact of tourism on their foreign reserves, because the foreign reserves
Mm.
of this small country comes about 80% from tourism, of which 50% is Russian tourism. And they are
Yeah.
shaking. They don't know
Yeah.
what's going to happen next year.
Yeah,
So
and
these are the
like
things that we
we
need
have to remember that, and in Egypt also, like the major tourist volume of Egypt is Russian.
Yes, particularly Sharm el Sheikh. Yes, it was full of Russians. I remember there, and I've been in Egypt several times, and I know. But not only Russian tourists, but also from all over the world, because
Mm.
uncertainty really fits negatively on tourism expeditions, and people also won't
Mm.
have the income to spend, even if they
Yeah,
would like to. They may not have the income to spend. So
Yeah.
let's see how things go. But the intermediate scenario is more likely, and things are going to be difficult for many countries in the coming few months. And again, it's up in the
Hmm.
air how much
Hmm.
energy prices are going to move up, commodity prices, certainly commodity prices are going to last longer.
Hmm.
You cannot produce wheat every month. You produce
Yeah.
it once, maybe twice a year in certain countries. Uh,
Yeah.
I think with oil and gas, they will settle sooner or later, but
Hmm.
with commodities, it's going to be harder.
Hmm. Hmm.
So you'll pay a lot to get a loaf of bread in Jordan.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess, but we have like strategic reserve for 8 months in Jordan, so
Good, good
it is
policy.
not an immediate impact. Yeah, yeah. They can find like they can find a way to fix it, or at least to reduce the impact. Okay,
That's good.
that was a great conversation, Doctor Harry. That was a great conversation. I will thank you again for accepting the invitation for my podcast, guys. For who doesn't know, Doctor Harry is my friend since long time, and he was a member of my intellectual conversation group in Abu Dhabi, and we used to have such conversation about several topics on weekly basis almost when I was in Emirates. So thank you
I
again,
miss
Dr.
that
Hari.
too. Thank you very much. It was very interesting to have me in your show. And let's talk again 1 year from now to see whether our predictions turn out to be true. Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
sure. Why not? Thank you guys for tuning in, we came to the end here regarding. Okay, a small announcement. For the consultation, guys, you can find me on ritplearabic.com. Like the link is down. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. If you don't, you can join the channel also to support the content and the channel in general. You can support the website by the support page and the website redpillarabic.com. For any inquiries, you can email me at info@redpillarabic.com. Thank you again and have a great night. Thank you.
Thank you.